The U.S. will likely hit another striking measure of the pandemic by the time the sun sets today. 100,000 deaths from the coronavirus. It is a staggering number reached at a shocking pace, from 1 death to 100,000 in just 3 months. USA Today is out with a new cover featuring the stories of many of the victims. The special feature comes with an essay calling the virus the, quote, fastest killer in U.S. history. We are also long past the president's predictions. Of course, he first asserted it would all quickly go away. When it began to get bad, he estimated 50 to 70,000 deaths. And that was supposed to be good news when he said it. When we passed that mark, he predicted 80 or 90,000 deaths. Yet even yesterday, the president only wanted to proclaim what a good job he has done, tweeting out, quote, I just keep rolling along. If I hadn't done my job well, up to 2 million people would be dead, and that he had acted quickly and made the right decisions. Here's what he's saying now, that the U.S., under his leadership, is approaching 100,000 deaths.
We closed the border to China, meaning we put on the ban, people coming in from China. That was a very big moment. As Dr. Fauci said, we saved thousands and thousands of lives when we did that. And that's true, but I think we would have had anywhere from 10 to 20 or 25 times the number of deaths if we didn't act the way we did, and also if we didn't act swiftly. So we're very proud of our team and our task force, and Mike, great job.
It is staggering. First of all, you just have to say, Willie, when he talks about China, again, here's a guy who, under his presidency, allowed 430,000 people to come to the United States since the beginning of this pandemic. And 40,000 came in even after that toothless ban from China. At the same time, of course, he didn't implement a ban from Europe when his Health and Human Services team was begging him to do that because he didn't want to upset the stock market. That delay in over a month cost countless people's lives, healthcare officials suggest. But it's interesting. He's talking about what a great job they have done. Now that 100,000 Americans are dead, the fastest killer, as USA Today says, in the history of this country. Now we're getting to the point where almost twice as many people are going to die from this coronavirus than died in the Vietnam War. And yet, all he does, he says the same thing over and over again. You know, back in January when he said it's just one person coming in from China, we've got it completely under control. We've done a good job. At the end of February, he said, oh, it's 15 people coming in. Soon it will be down to zero. Zero. And he said, so we've done a really good job. In March, he talked about how they did a really good job. What again? Donald Trump missed all the signs that were given to him from the very beginning.
And also botched.
Given to him in January from warnings from the State Department. He was warned in January by the Pentagon, his own Pentagon. He was warned by Health and Human Services in January. He ignored those warnings. He was warned by the FDA. He ignored those warnings. He was warned by his intel agencies in daily briefings in January, early January. He ignored those warnings. He was warned. I mean, I could go down just so many cabinet agencies. He was warned at the end of January from his trade representative, Peter Navarro. And Navarro said, 500,000 Americans, 500,000 souls could be lost. And that was about the same time that Donald Trump is saying we have everything under control. This is going well.
This is going to have a very good ending for us.
A very good ending. The same time, you know, that Joe Biden was saying, at this same exact time at the end of January that Navarro was warning about 500,000 deaths, he said, Donald Trump has made it so we are not ready for the coming pandemic. He should let doctors and nurses run this. He should let them talk. but he never did. He just kept engaging in wishful thinking. And the consequences on the American people, and especially on senior citizens, Willie, the consequences on senior citizens, on veterans of World War II, veterans of Korea, veterans of Vietnam, veterans that gave their best for us. As the New York Times wrote over Memorial Day weekend, told stories of men who survived the worst of World War II, who died over the past 3 months. The fastest killer in U.S. history, a pandemic that the president told crowds and his TV propagandists told their audiences was being whipped up as a hoax by the media. Whipped up as a hoax by the media, said the president of the United States, when he was saying it's 15 people going to be zero. And now we're crossing, Willie, 100,000 Americans dead. And the sad thing is, we don't know where this is going to end because the president is lying to the American people when he says this is not going to come back in the fall. The president has been lying in the past about hydroxychloroquine. Even last week, I think it was, claiming that he was taking this drug that his own administration said was dangerous and caused deaths. And yet he's pushing it. He was taking it, Willie, and now he is mocking reporters who are wearing masks. So sadly, we've crossed the 100,000 threshold, but even 100,000 Americans dead doesn't even wake this president up, Willie, to follow. All we've asked from the beginning, follow your doctor's advice. Follow your doctor's advice. That's all we've asked on this show. And he just can't do it.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.